Everyone. My name is Alison. I am the Assistant Director of Career Services for the School of Communications, and I'm excited to talk with you today about writing a great cover letter. I think if you haven't written a cover letter before, they can sometimes come across as a little daunting. People can be intimidated with writing one and not really sure what they should include, what it should look like. So I hope that this presentation can give you a little bit more clarity when it comes to that. So it does kind of follow a set formula, but good cover letters will be customized to each opportunity that you apply to. And we'll discuss that a little bit more later on. So today I'm going to go over what a cover letter is, some tips for content and formatting, and show you some helpful resources. So what's the purpose of a cover letter? I think sometimes people wonder, why am I writing this when I already have a resume that lists all my experience? A cover letter is a way to introduce you to the employer. So it's a business letter that is your introduction to the employer. And it's also a way to state your interest in that company and in that position specifically. And I think the most important thing of what a cover letter can do that a resume can't is that it can tell more of a story, and it's a more of a narrative format than your resume allows. And like I mentioned earlier, it should be tailored to each company, and it should reflect the qualifications that you possess that are directly related to the position. So to do that, you have to make sure you're really researching the company and the position description in order to write a strong cover letter. And just keep in mind too, when you're not sure, always recommend to send a cover letter anyway. Sometimes it won't specify. Always look to see what the application materials requested are. And it may just say a resume is all that's required. But if you're not sure, I always recommend just sending one anyway. And that's always a good practice. Okay, so I'm going to go over some top reasons that cover letters can get rejected so that you can avoid some of these pitfalls. So first, we have typos and grammatical errors. Of course, this is a big one, probably not surprising. Same with a resume, you want to make sure you proofread and that it has no typos and grammatical errors. Next one is being too short or too long. So you want to have it be 1 page maximum. Don't want it to be less or more than that. Even a little less than a page is perfect. Doesn't have to fill up the whole page. But you do want to have more than half a page. You don't want it to look like you don't have enough to write about. You also don't want to have a non-specific salutation. So do not address it to whom it may concern, because that can come across as really not specific and make your cover letter seem generic. It's best to address the letter to a specific person. So look on the website, look around on LinkedIn to find a contact. And if you can't find the information, you can even call the company's human resource office and really do your due diligence to try to find that person's name, because that will really show that you've that you're interested and that you've looked at it the best you can. Oops, sorry. Or if you can't find it, you can always do Dear Hiring Manager. Okay, next is a boring opener. We'll talk a little bit more, but you want to make sure you try to catch their attention. That can sometimes be a reason that an employer doesn't continue to read your cover letter. Using a generic cover letter kind of goes with the salutation there, but cover letters should really be customized to each company and position, and it should reflect any special skills or knowledge that you possess related to the job. Employers can easily recognize generic cover letters, so it's very important to tailor it. Make sure you research the company and position description to write a strong cover letter. And you can keep in mind, you can create a cover letter that you sort of use as a skeleton or as a base, but you should adapt it every time so that you can, you have that base, but you can use it to apply to lots of opportunities, but you're still changing it every time. Too much info is make sure you don't have that on a cover letter. It's not about your life story. You want to maybe draw the reader in, and you can use a personal story to do that, but you want to make sure you're not giving too much personal info. It's really still should be, it's a business letter that should be focused on your professional experience. And then not giving concrete examples. So we'll talk about that as well. But saying you have skills and then not giving any examples to back it up, that's not what employers want to see. They want to see specific things that you've done. And lastly, demonstrating a lack of research or interest into the hiring company. So make sure you really understand the company and the industry that they're in. You should really have done some good digging on their websites. Hopefully you've already been networking with people so that you have a really good insight on them. And you also want to demonstrate why you want to work there. So that's really important to make sure that all comes across to the employer. Okay, so now just some additional basics for cover letters. It should really answer these three questions: Who are you? Why do you want this job? And why should I hire you? So that when you're drafting your cover letter, those are the topics that you should be really focusing on. And then also make sure that it's not just repeating your resume. A lot of times people do that, but it's really about elaborating, telling a story of the key qualities and experiences that are on your resume. So instead of just listing everything again in a different format, maybe share two or three of those relevant experiences and what we call professional stories. That reflect skills that the employer is specifically seeking. So that's where you really want to incorporate keywords from the job description so that you stand out. A great way to do this is to utilize the STAR method. So this is something you may have heard about. As you can see at the bottom, it also applies to things like resumes and interviews. But the STAR method is an acronym that stands for situation and task, A, action, the actions that you took and the reasoning behind them, and then R is results, to really share your positive outcome here. So there's a good example that's kind of a simplified version that even could be a bullet point on a resume that communicated effectively with 50 plus customers daily. That one, that's a great example. But when you're thinking about drawing out that story a little bit more on a cover letter, um, take an example of, say that you're applying for an account executive position, and some of the qualifications in the job description are things like knowledge of market research, creating detailed business plans, ability to build relationship with clients. So, those are some of the keywords that they mentioned. So you want to tell a professional story that demonstrates, oh, sorry, let me go back, that demonstrates to the reader that you have those skills, right? So rather than just saying, I can develop a business plan, I'm knowledgeable, you want to show how you've done that. So you could say, I worked at Live Oak, which is Elon's student run communications agency. So you're kind of setting up that situation and task, right? Then you can say, I worked with a local restaurant to enhance their marketing efforts. I conducted extensive market research. I met frequently with the client to understand their needs and designed a comprehensive social media marketing plan for them. So now you've talked about the actions, which is really demonstrating that you have done those skills that they're seeking. And then you can end it with saying something like, as a result of our efforts, um, such as promoting weekly specials on Instagram stories, the restaurant saw increased revenue and doubled their social media followers. So you've really hit all aspects of that STAR method. And that mini story, is only about 3 sentences. So it's great to really hone in on something from your resume that is really relevant that you can describe more in depth here. And so, the goal of this is to really to connect the dots between your experience and the requirements of the position. Tell a reader what you've accomplished and how it directly translates to meeting the company's needs. Okay, next is about catching their attention. So make sure you have a strong opening sentence. You want to hook your reader in. Now, some fields that may be more, maybe fields like business, like accounting, finance, that may be more kind of straightforward. They may not necessarily want this or need this kind of thing. You could have a more straightforward cover letter, but for a lot of things, it won't hurt you to have a strong opener that's going to help the reader to continue reading because they're interested in what you have to say, right? So I would recommend doing the way to make you stand out. So a way that you can do this is to include kind of a personal story or just a story about the company or position if you can't think of something, necessarily personal. For example, I can tell you we have a colleague who grew up as an Army brat, so I think she's been to 11 schools in 12 years growing up. So she's said she's used that as an intro. Oops, sorry, keep skipping ahead. She's used that as an intro to be able to say, by the time I was in 12th grade, I had gone to 11 different schools. And she uses that as a hook to say, because of this experience, I am able to easily meet new people and adapt to different situations. So she uses that as a kind of segue. I worked with another student recently who broke both their legs their senior year of high school as a basketball player. And so they use that as a hook to talk about their resiliency. So those are great personal stories that just have a little bit of personal info and then relate it. But don't feel like you have to have that kind of story. You can also just express your interest in the company position in kind of a unique and intriguing way. So these are some examples. So like I said, an employer may not want to see the typical, I'm for this job at this company, right? It can be a little boring. So being able to have a different hook, so being able to say, I've wanted to work in education ever since my third grade teacher helped me discover a love of reading, right? And you can see some other examples there that really just showcase, or not showcase, but are a way to hook your reader in. And hopefully then they'll continue to read your entire cover letter and see all the great skills and experiences you've had. So again, the benefits of this is that it makes you more memorable, helps you stand out when there could be hundreds of applicants applying. And it's something about you or an aspect of the job description that you're really drawn to. That's what you can focus on there. So just some additional formatting considerations. Make sure your heading, margins, font size, type, all of that should match your resume. It's really a way to brand your application material so that everything is consistent. Just some things I listed there to consider for font size and style. But again, it should be the same as your resume anyway. I recommend creating cover letters in Word and then uploading it as a PDF. I know some people like to make it on Google Docs, and that's fine. I just think sometimes the layout and design to make it typical sort of business format can be a little easier on Word. But I do recommend saving it as a PDF and that having that the copy that you upload it. Don't use a template. There's a lot of online sites where you can kind of create a cover letter through their template. But again, I would recommend just creating that from scratch and keep it to one page. Like we mentioned, 3 to 4 paragraphs is a good consideration. And remember to sign the letter. This is a big one that people don't do, but it really makes it look professional if you can sign, actually sign your name like on a white piece of paper. You could take a picture with your cell phone and then you can email that to yourself and be able to paste that right into your letter. So I strongly recommend that versus trying to do like the fake cursive on Word or whatever and putting that as your signature. Having a real signature is really cool. And then you can save that JPEG and be able to use it whenever you want. So definitely encourage that and make sure you do your sign name and then also type your name. Okay, so now I'm going to show you 2 really helpful online resources. One is on our website, on the SPDC's website, which is a cover letter quick guide. And the other one is actually a resource from, I believe it's Arizona State, that one of our colleagues found last year that I think is really helpful, which discusses and shows an example of how to specifically tailor your cover letter to a job description. So I'm going to show you both of those. So the first resource you can find if you are on the Student Professional Development Center's homepage. And if you scroll down to resources and then go to cover letters and resumes, you'll see this cover letter quick guide. And this will open you up to a really helpful document that we have. The first page kind of goes over what we've already discussed, the purpose, some different tips for cover letters. Then the second page has a really nice sort of formula to help you if you're struggling with really how to organize your content and where things should go. Now, of course, you don't have to stick to this exactly. You're welcome to kind of move things around. Something on here that actually talking about discussing your interest in the organization, that's something I would recommend actually putting early, kind of in that first paragraph with something we talked about, about having that hook. But it still can be really helpful to just with, especially kind of when you're writing your first cover letter, to have this as a guide. Now we also have 2 samples that you can look at if you scroll down as well. There's one sample here, which is for an on-campus job, and then another sample down here as well. Yours is probably going to look more like this second one, which has the same header as your resume, like we talked about. Then you have the date and all the employer info. Make sure that you use this as a guideline for how that should all be listed. But there's also, you can do it this way as well, which is especially helpful if you have more of a creative resume and maybe your header doesn't have all this information. I know some people in the comm school, they just have like their name and then they have a different spot where other contact information is because they may have used Adobe or another product to create it. So that's totally fine. If that's the case, you may want to use this format of listing your information on the side like that. But either way, you can kind of see how it looks here, and this person has their signature. So that's a good example. And, these can help you, but make sure you're not taking any directly from that. Make sure you're writing it in your own style and just using these if you need some help and some guidance to get started. The second resource I want to show you, which is not on our website, but your professor should have the link to this, and if not, you're welcome to contact me, and I can give this to you as well. But this is a really helpful resource to explain, what does it really mean when we say tailoring your cover letter to the job description. So this gives you a sample job description at Nordstrom, and this is for a merchandise manager with shoes. And it talks a little bit about about Nordstrom, which usually the job descriptions are going to describe the company. And as you can see here, it says, like we talked about, use the job description to choose key skills and responsibilities to highlight in your cover letter. So for this position, this person identified these as some of the top skills. And you can see throughout that they may be bolded and highlighted, which could be a great strategy for you if you have the job description, on a printed out or on your computer. Highlight some of the things that you feel like are the big skills that they're looking for, and especially the ones that you know that you can highlight because you've had experiences there. So you can see some of the things they've highlighted: responsible for pricing, familiar with the landscape, anticipating future trends, understanding the brand positioning in the market, attention to detail, time management, excellent communication skills, ability to work in a team, 2 years of experience in working in retail, right? So you get the idea here. So basically, they take that job description and the things that they've pulled, and now they're going to turn it into their job description. I mean, not their job description, their cover letter. So here you go. You have the nice info up here, and then it says, I possess a passion and commitment for the retail industry, which I think is a nice kind of hook there. And because of this, I'm excited to apply for this position. And now it says this position aligns with my experience working in 3 different retail environments. So they're taking that piece, including learning merchandise best practices, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if we scroll down, they give a really concrete example where they said, this past summer, when I interned at Old Navy, I developed an understanding of this. Now, how did they do that? They collaborated with a 5-person team, which was teamwork was one of the skills they were looking for, to enhance sales or create weekly reports to enhance sales and analyze industry trends. Talked about a big accomplishment they did, which was predicting fashion trends. So, they're really showcasing here that how they developed their understanding and how they implemented that in practice. Then they have another example here too, very relevant, of an intern at TJX. Now, don't feel like the experiences that you have always have to match exactly. You may have had a job waitressing or as a guard, but there could be very relevant skills. So make sure, if they're seeking teamwork, your second paragraph could be something that maybe the company is not as relevant or specific, but you can still really highlight the skills that you have. So yeah, I just wanted to showcase that as another, I think, really helpful resource. And I hope that helps you clarify or just get a better sense of what does it really mean to take that resume and to tailor it. So you can see here, how different each of yours are going to be when you really do a good job of customizing it. You're not really going to have the same examples that you're using every time. You might for some similar positions, but you're really going to want to change that each time. All right, so those were the online resources. So that's really all I have for you today. If you have any questions about what I talked about, please feel free to email me. My email is right there. So I'd be happy to talk with you. You can also make an appointment with myself or any of our career advisors. On the Elon Job Network. If you are working on a cover letter, we're happy to work with you on that to help you make it as specific as possible. If you want to brainstorm some ways that you can have that nice hook to catch the reader, we're happy to work with you on that. So thank you for listening to this presentation. And like I said, feel free to email me or make an appointment with us. We're happy to work with you at any time. Thanks.